in.
Welcome into Wager Talk TV. I am Drew Martin, joined by Steve Merrill and Matt Josephs from WagerTalk and SportsMemo.com. We're talking Ole Miss at Arkansas Saturday, 3:30 on ESPN2. Mid-major Matt, we got Ole Miss laying 3 on the highway, 76.5. We're talking an SEC game with 76.5 being the total here, mid-major Matt. What are you thinking in Ole Miss versus Arkansas?
Well, to me, this is a rather somewhat of a simple handicap to me, and I don't necessarily have a lean in this one, but I'll tell you basically why. It's two teams who should be modestly hungover or distracted. You've got an Arkansas team that arguably was screwed last week out of a victory. You know, that was a fumble by Bo Nix. That should have been Arkansas ball, and Arkansas should have won the game. Instead, they give up the late field goal, and they lose a game that they should have. And Sam Pittman's done a really good job there, and you have to wonder how a team that's young like them, how they bounce back the next week in another game where they potentially could win. This is we hear a lot about bad programs and how you have to learn how to win. Well, this is a situation where there's a chance they should win this game. Can they actually take advantage of it? And then you look on the Ole Miss side. I mean, that was their Super Bowl last week. Lane Kiffin going up against Nick Saban and all the bravado and everything and all the stories about Kiffin and Saban back and forth. I mean, Ole Miss's offense has been fantastic this year. Corral has been everything that you could hope for when it comes to that side of the ball. But I think I read a stat that Ole Miss was like 41 yards short of how many yards they should have given up, that there were a couple of penalties and a couple of missed plays, that they almost should have given up 800 yards of offense. So to me, the handicap is simple. If you believe that Ole Miss is going to get out of the haze, their really good offense is going to play well, and their defense is going to make stops, then you take Ole Miss. If you think Arkansas is going to use some sort of momentum from the game they should have won last week, bring it forward to this week against a hungover Ole Miss, then you're taking Arkansas. That's how I'm looking at this game.
And Steve, coming to you, I mean, I think it's a fascinating handicap here. We got Arkansas, who's been a big money maker ATS this year, going up against Ole Miss, one of the most prolific offenses in college football. What are you thinking in Fayetteville, 3:30 on Saturday?
Yeah, I agree with Matt. I mean, what's difficult about handicapping this game is which team has the bigger letdown. If you can figure that one out, you've got the winner because it's a 3-point spread. The early money has come in on the dog. It dropped it from 3.5, Drew, to 3, which is a critical number, of course, in both college and pro football. About 10% of the time, about 9 to 10% of the time in college, a 3-point favorite's going to win by exactly 3 points. So that half-point move was a big one early in the week. I think some of that was because of the uncertainty of which team will have the letdown. If you don't know, you usually lean towards the dog in a game like this. One thing that is certain, though, these are two terrible defensive teams. And as you mentioned, it's a huge total. It's around that 76.5 range here, but for good reason. I mean, this is basically projecting a 40-37 game to get it over the total. And I see no reason why it can't get there. You look at Ole Miss, this team has allowed 41 points or more in all 3 games this year. Overall for the season, they're allowing just under 52 points a game. They're giving up 303 rushing yards a game, 7.3 yards per carry. Now, the problem is that Arkansas isn't a good running team. They're averaging only 86 rushing yards, 2.4 yards per carry. But I think almost anybody and their brother and sister could run against this Mississippi run defense. Arkansas should get better on the ground here. They've been very good throwing the ball, 7.5 yards per pass. Ole Miss has been extremely good throwing the ball, 12.5 yards per pass, 42 points per game. I look for both offenses to move it left and right, up and down the field. And if both teams are flat here, as I think they very well could be, you know, we talk about letdowns. They don't come after big wins like everyone thinks. They come after tough losses. And as Matt mentioned, I mean, that was Ole Miss's game of the year, basically, against Alabama last week. They're a 24-point dog, and they hang tight. Same thing with Arkansas, 13-point dog against Auburn. They lose by just 2 on the road. I think if both teams come flat, which they will, that actually leads to even more scoring as both defenses will be flat. And we've seen very poor tackling in football this year with limited practice. It's a big number, but it's there for a reason. Over be the only way I play it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Steve. It is up there, but it's up there for a reason. 76.5, looking towards the over. Follow him on Twitter at Steve Merrill. That's 2 R's, 1 L. Also, Matt Josephs on Twitter at Mid-Major Matt. And guys, looking at the scroll below, yes, we are talking Ole Miss versus Arkansas, but also remember the coupon code here, SM25. It takes $25 off any service 3 days or longer for both Steve and Matt. Check it out, WagerTalk and SportsMemo.com. Also note you can double dip here and use it on both of them. SM25 is the coupon code. Check it out, WagerTalk and SportsMemo.com.